They say there is a creature called a NHI. A dead human becomes a ghost. A dead ghost transforms into a NHI. It is a being that even spectral souls fear. After my younger sister, Gia, was murdered, my parents, wanting to extract every last bit of value from her, arranged a ghost marriage for her. On the day of the ceremony, Master Lee, whom we had invited, suddenly turned ghastly pale, his voice trembling as he said, "Your sister. She has become a NHI." Absolute panic seized me. Before I could even ask for clarification, a blood-curdling scream tore from my younger brother, Felix's, throat, echoing from inside the room. "Mother, mother, Aya." That agonizing scream, tearing through the air, erupted from behind the tightly shut door. Master Lee, his face drained of color, didn't even turn his head but spun around, intent on fleeing. A dead human becomes a ghost. A dead ghost becomes a NHI. A NHI is something even ghosts fear. I can do nothing, I must go." My mother heard this, her legs giving way, and she collapsed to the ground. She clutched a thick wad of red banknotes and thrust them into Master Lee's hands, her voice lost in hysteria. "Master, I beg you, please save my Felix. He's my only son left." I could only stand rooted to the spot, my eyes fixed on the fragile paper door. The door was so thin, a single punch could tear through it. Yet my brother's hands, striking it with all his might, couldn't rip it apart, leaving only spreading bloodstains printed on the white paper window. My mother knelt on the yellow earth, wildly banging her head against the ground, which soon became smeared with blood. Seeing me still standing there, stunned, her clouded eyes flashed with a cruel light, and then, as if possessed, she lunged at me. Slap! A blinding blow that made stars explode before my eyes. She screamed like a madwoman. "This useless child! Now you've let your brother be trapped in there, suffering. I'll beat you to death, you cursed omen." From the day my sister died, I became invisible in our home. I ate the least, no one listened to me, and I was tortured like an animal. Gaunt, dizzy with hunger, I had no strength to resist. My mother pinned me to the ground, slapping me relentlessly. Each blow felt like it would burst my eardrums, blood trickling from the corner of my mouth, my ears ringing loudly. Master Lee, horrified, rushed to intervene. "Autumn, don't hit her anymore. Her blood flowing onto the ground will cause Gia's resentment to erupt." Before he could finish, I spat out a mouthful of fresh blood that stained the earth red. The anguished screams from inside abruptly fell silent. All three of us froze. My mother saw the door slightly ajar, and without a second thought, she lunged towards it, but couldn't get inside. From the darkness beyond the door, a blood-soaked figure slowly dragged itself out. I stared at Master Lee beside me, not daring to look directly, turning my head away. The thing lying there had its skin completely peeled off, leaving only a naked, bloody body, fresh red flesh clinging to dirty earth, reeking of decay and foul energy. A wave of nausea rose in my throat, a vile, sour taste filling my mouth. But I dared not vomit, fearing my mother would beat me to a pulp again. My mother wailed inconsolably. "Felix, my son, oh my Felix." Boom, boom, boom. The clear sky suddenly gathered dark clouds, the blue heavens stained a terrifying blood red. From behind the door, a series of soft, chilling giggles echoed. Master Lee, trembling, pulled out a yellow talisman and gripped my hand tightly. My whole body shook uncontrollably, my eyes wide, staring at the door. There, a figure slowly stepped out, adorned in dazzling red wedding attire, its fingernails so long they nearly scraped the ground, its head bowed, emitting no sound whatsoever. Master Lee squeezed my hand, whispering into my ear, "Autumn, Gia has just transformed into a NHI. Her 5 senses are still vague. Your brother is half dead with barely any human essence left in him. She won't recognize him. Your mother also has talismans on her, so Gia has searched and searched but can't find anyone. She will leave on her own if she sees no one." Gia paced around a few times, her blank white eyes scanning. Clearly, Felix and my mother were lying right by her feet, yet she seemed to completely miss them. I gripped Master Lee's hand tightly, crouching down, not daring to move. A few meters from me, my mother clutched Felix, her hands smeared with blood, crying as if her heart would break. They were both ordinary people. They couldn't see Gia. Just as Master Lee predicted, Gia, dragging the train of her red dress, walked around a few times, found no one, then lowered her head and turned behind the mud wall. The sky gradually returned to its normal blue, cicadas screeching so shrilly it felt like they were tearing at my ears and brain. I let out a long, shaky breath, cold sweat soaking my back. But just then, a chill, ominous breeze swept past the back of my neck, making me involuntarily look up. Gia rotated her head backward, not just turning to look, but her entire head spun a full circle, facing backward over her shoulders. Under the midday sun, she stood right beside the phoenix tree, her once gentle face now ghastly white to ashen gray, blood oozing from her eye sockets, the corners of her mouth torn to her ears, her blank white pupils fixated on me, a chilling, guttural giggle escaping her lips. Suddenly, a splash of ice-cold water hit my face, making me jump. Before I could regain my composure, the wooden door behind me slammed shut with a bang, locked. The stench of decay hit my nose, mixed with the prickly sensation of the straw on my back, making me realize I was locked in the pigsty. Dusk began to fall. Remembering Gia's terrifying smile from earlier, I cried and crawled to pound on the door. "Mother, I'm sorry. Please don't leave me here alone." "You good-for-nothing, you even messed that up. What use are you now?" My father's voice echoed from outside, full of contempt. Hearing me keep banging, he flew into a rage, kicking the wooden door with a horrifying sound. "Stop howling, you dog. If Felix doesn't wake up, I'll cut you open and feed you to the pigs." I trembled violently, the round lamp hanging from the ceiling flickering on and off, its intermittent light illuminating the sty, revealing a sow grunting as it raised its head and stared at me. I didn't dare make another sound. My mother, at most, would only whip me a few times, but my father, he truly would kill. I fumbled in my cloth bag and found a single yellow talisman left. Holding it in my hand, I felt a little easier to breathe. Today was supposed to be Gia's wedding day, a ghost marriage. My mother's firstborn was me. My father was so furious that every time he got drunk, he'd beat my mother half to death. My mother prayed to all the gods and Buddhas and finally gave birth to a son, Felix. But for our destitute family, just raising us was a feat. Marrying a wife for a son was a daydream. So my parents went to the village dump, the place where infant corpses were routinely discarded, and dug up a baby girl. When they brought her home, the child was almost dead, but with great fortune, Gia survived. My parents only ever fussed over Felix. The one who raised Gia was me. Every spoonful of porridge, every fanning, every fever was meticulously cared for by me. And now, she's dead and transformed into something even ghosts fear. The whole village said my sister committed suicide, but I knew she died after being violated. And the one who did it was my precious younger brother. That morning, Felix went to the village general store to buy a box of something that looked like chewing gum. I didn't know what it was, so I casually asked. He chuckled, then slyly said, "I'm going to open for business." I didn't understand, I just focused on my work. Mother had sent me to wash a pile of clothes, and it was winter. The riverbank was thick with ice, and just breaking the ice took an enormous amount of time. I was afraid that if I didn't finish, I'd be starved, so I hurriedly left the house, carrying the basin. Unluckily, that day the weather unexpectedly warmed up, the ice melted early, and the clothes washed quickly. I cheerfully came home early and witnessed it. Felix was covering Gia's mouth, and her eyes were filled with despair, tears streaming down her face. My heart pounded, wanting to explode, and I quickly turned and ran. But as I turned, I saw the house door was open. My parents were home. They heard the commotion inside. My mother paused for a moment, then beamed, her eyes full of pride. "Felix is grown up." My father said nothing, just patted my head with his calloused, rough hand. "Autumn, go to the village head's house and buy me a pack of cigarettes." I numbly took the 5 yuan note he pressed into my hand, walking out of the house like a zombie. Thump, 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 the incessant pounding on the door made me jump, clutching my head and cowering in a corner of the pigsty. "Gia, I was wrong, I know I was wrong." The sounds outside grew increasingly violent. The sow next to me grunted in panic, circling in the pen. I squeezed my eyes shut, crying and muttering nonstop. I was wrong, I was wrong. "Autumn, get out here." The door was kicked open, and my father grabbed my hair, dragging me out and throwing me onto the straw. As I opened my eyes, he raised his hand to slap me, but Master Li blocked him. "Autumn is the only one who can save Felix. Calm down, old man." I didn't understand anything. My mind was hazy and chaotic. Master Li knelt before me, his voice softening. "Autumn, listen to me. Felix was so frightened that his soul has scattered. He's lost a part of it. A NHI devours human souls, and you've been able to see ghosts since you were a child. Only you can save him, understand?" I was so scared I could only shake my head repeatedly. My father glared, then without a word, kicked me directly. "What are you scared of? You've accompanied Master Li to so many rituals. Are you still afraid of ghosts?" I rolled to the ground from the kick, kneeling and crying uncontrollably. It was precisely because I had seen too much that I was truly terrified. Gia had not only become a vengeful spirit, but had also transformed into a NHI, a being even demons dared not face. That day, after assisting Master Li with a ritual, the village chief called me aside. His son, Ma Liu, had died of starvation not long ago. His resentment had lingered for 3 days and nights, refusing to dissipate, and they still couldn't find a good day for burial. The chief said he wanted to arrange a celebratory funeral for him. Knowing my sister had just died, he proposed a ghost marriage between the two. Ma Liu's resentment was too strong. Several rituals had failed to bring him peace. But the chief promised to pay our family 20,000 yuan if we agreed. I couldn't resist. I went home and told my parents everything. 20,000 yuan was enough for our family to live comfortably for several years. On the day of the ghost marriage, only I, representing the bride's family, went to give her away. The rest were arranged by the village chief's side. When we arrived, I realized the wedding and funeral were being held on the same day. The chief didn't understand these taboos, he just wanted to get it done quickly. They had no wedding sedan, what was carried out was a coffin. On one side, I wore bright red, on the other, everyone wore stark white mourning clothes. A joyous occasion colliding with a funeral, the converging yin energy created an immense malevolent aura. A shiver ran down my spine. I only knew how to commune with spirits, I had only learned a few superficial tricks of the other arts, not enough to save anyone. Of the entire procession for the ghost marriage, dozens of people, only I returned alive. Jia's soul on that very day of the ghost marriage was bitten to death on the spot by the ghost husband. I was so terrified that I crawled and stumbled all the way home. As soon as I arrived, I saw Master Li waiting at the door, his face grim. He only said one sentence, "Jia has become an NHI. I cannot defy the will of heaven." Master Li gently advised me, slipping a candle into my hand. "Autumn, this candle will protect your life. As long as it doesn't go out, Jia won't find you. You must find Felix's soul so it can see this candle. Once it sees it, it will follow you automatically." Master Li calculated that Felix was in the southeast direction, a place he frequented when he was alive. "Go there and try to find him." Master Li patiently instructed me, while my father stood by, smoking, his eyes bloodshot. Seeing me secretly glance at him, he squinted, saying scornfully, "She's just a dead girl, what are you scared of? What the hell? If she's so formidable, why doesn't she come for me and your mother? Only weak-hearted types like you are afraid of her." Master Li frowned, clearly displeased with those words. Suddenly, a cold wind blew through, making the candle flicker, and I quickly raised my hand to shield it. My father snorted disdainfully, spitting a glob of saliva onto the ground. That wretched wretch, she was poor and pathetic in life, what trouble could she possibly stir up in death? I didn't dare argue, bowing my head and remaining silent. Master Li ignored him, simply took my hand and gently comforted me. "Autumn, don't be afraid." My entire body stiffened, my gaze resting on his hand for a few seconds before I nodded subtly. I will bring him back." He patted my head, his voice low. "All right, go." From home, heading southeast meant crossing the river where I usually washed clothes. A few hundred meters further was the small general store Felix frequented. When we were little, he and I were very close. Our family had a rule: women and girls were not allowed to sit at the dinner table. Father and Felix sat on chairs in the living room, mother sat cross-legged in the kitchen. Jia and I sat on the ground on a tattered mat, watching spiders spin webs in the corner. Back then, Felix often invited me to play, even secretly slipping me snacks like 2-house spicy sticks or small candies. But as he grew older, he became more and more like father, smoking, drinking, raising his hand to hit me, and starting to torment Jia. I was always quiet and often babbled about seeing ghosts, so I was frequently beat. Over time, I learned to bow my head and live a quiet life to avoid trouble, and thus didn't realize the filthy way he looked at Jia. Autumn winds swept through in gusts, making the night even colder. Dry leaves rustled underfoot, creating an eerie sound. I swallowed hard, looking at the unlit general store a few meters away, gripping the candle tightly in my hand, then walked towards it. The flickering flame suddenly glowed blood red. I was overjoyed, for this meant Felix was nearby. I approached and knocked. "Is anyone home?" An old voice echoed from inside. "Who is it?" I sighed in relief to hear a human voice. "I'm Autumn, here to buy a few things." The door opened, revealing a gaunt, small old man with skin wrinkled like dry bark. I stepped inside the pitch-black interior, only the faint candlelight illuminating the surroundings. The room was filled with dark red lanterns, each one packed tightly like a dense bed. The old man said nothing, simply turned back and sat down, continuing to weave something with his hands. I scanned the room, and then my entire body turned cold. All around me were smiling paper figures. This was no general store at all, and even more horrifying, they were moving. They began to slowly approach, but when they saw the candle in my hand, their speed surged. Startled, I realized something was wrong and quickly pulled a talisman from my pocket, wrapping it tightly around the candle. Only then did the paper figures stop moving. The candle I held was an incense candle, the kind used for offerings, consecrated by Master Li. It could ward off Jia, but precisely because it had incense smoke, it strongly attracted ghosts. Master Li had said that as long as Felix saw the candle, he would automatically follow me. But just now, those paper figures had also rushed towards the candle, meaning they were all ghosts. My back felt icy, but thinking that if I didn't save Felix, my own death might be even more gruesome, I gritted my teeth. I trudged through the crowd of paper figures, the candle flame in my hand glowing blood red, proving Felix was very close. Suddenly, an idea flashed in my mind. I trembled as I raised the candle to illuminate each paper face. One face had a mole right under its eye, very familiar. I froze. It was someone from the wedding procession that day, as if a basin of cold water had been poured over my head. From scalp to heel, I was ice cold. I continued to look at the next face, which almost made me faint. It was the village chief's son, the one who had died from excessive resentment. And the paper figure next to him was clearly the village chief. I remembered Master Li's words. A Nhi is a being that exists beyond the control of the underworld, wandering in the mortal realm. They live in a place called Nhi's dark nether realm, a place more brutal than the 18 levels of hell. I didn't know when I had stepped into it. I had entered Jia's house. Realizing this, my entire neck went numb, my heart pounding as if it would explode. I gasped for breath, fumbling through the blood-red light to find an exit. The dead could still be reincarnated, but those who died at the hands of Nhi could never be reborn. I trembled as I pushed my way out of the crowd of paper figures. Only when I reached the door did I dare breathe a little easier. I thought I might as well go find a place to end this life. Even being an ox or horse in the next would be better than being human. I raised the candle high, following its dim light to find the doorknob. Click! I opened the door. I breathed a sigh of relief, raised the candle, and was about to step out, but the candle light shone on the window glass, clearly reflecting my shadow and another figure. The old man who had opened the door was perched on my neck. He bared his teeth, grinning hideously, his face twisted like a demon. He coughed up streams of black, viscous liquid onto the back of my neck, cold as ice trickling down my spine. I was terrified, screaming hysterically. Just then, from outside, a faint cry echoed from afar. "Sister, close your eyes." I didn't have time to think, instinctively squeezing my eyes shut. Immediately after, a soul-shattering pain enveloped me, making me shriek in agony. I burst my eyes open, gasping for breath, tears streaming down my face. Before me was a translucent soul, a child Felix. The boy also burst into tears, his voice choked, "Sister." I looked around and realized I was still by the riverbank. Perhaps my soul had been forced out of my body as I passed by. Felix looked bewildered, his soul appearing severely damaged. I quickly raised the candle, leading him home. Along the way, nothing unusual happened. Very quickly, I saw our familiar house with yellow light spilling from the door. Master Li was waiting outside the gate, my parents behind him. As soon as she saw me, Mother rushed forward and grabbed my collar, her eyes bloodshot, her face crazed. "Felix, is Felix back?" I nodded. "Felix is back, he's right next to me." Felix called out "Mother" to her, but she didn't hear. Mother collapsed to the ground, weeping bitterly. "He's back, that's good." "He's back, my son, you've suffered so much. You cursed child, I only wish I could flay you and drink your blood." Father saw Mother's loud, annoying wailing and kicked her. "Felix is back. What are you still wailing about?" My mother wiped her tears, quickly stood up, brushed the dirt from her clothes, and cautiously asked Master Li, "What do we do next?" Just as Master Li was about to speak, he glanced at me, his face turning pale. Before I understood what was happening, I looked down at my hand. The candle had gone out some time ago. Next to me, Felix's soul began to flicker like a dying light bulb in the pigsty. Master Li shouted, "Push my mother into the house. Jia is coming again, get inside quickly." At that very moment, under the phoenix tree in the distance, a red shadow slowly appeared, stepping closer and closer towards us. My heart tightened. I frantically pushed my parents into the house. "Mother, Jia is coming, hurry!" Master Li stood blocking the rear, gently reassuring me, "Autumn, don't be afraid, I'm here." Mother was still frantically calling Felix's name. I no longer had time to care. I didn't know where the strength came from, but I shoved her inside. Felix. Is Felix in here? I hesitated. My mother saw my hesitation, her expression immediately changed, and she slapped me with tremendous force. My father also gritted his teeth in anger. If anything happens to Felix, I'll beat you to death. Get out there and bring him back immediately. Half of my face went numb. I bowed my head and mumbled, "Yes, I'm going." Father didn't forget to add another kick. "Hurry up, a cow moves faster than you." I staggered, almost falling. As I stepped out the door, a chilling cold hit my face, so cold that my spine felt like it would freeze. Master Lee, gravely injured, gritted his teeth and threw out talismans one by one. Seeing me, his eyes lit up, and he threw another candle to me, shouting, "Autumn, light it quickly." I trembled as I lit the candle. Felix reappeared beside me. Master Lee yelled, "It's the right time. Felix's soul can return to his body now. Run!" Master Lee threw out the last talisman and ran after me. I held the candle and dashed into the darkness. Just a few meters away, yet it felt like I was running endlessly. Only when the door in front of me appeared did I dare to breathe a sigh of relief. I pushed the door open and rushed in, but just then, a chilling giggle echoed behind me. Gia had caught up, less than 3 meters away. Master Lee shouted loudly when he saw me get inside the house. "Autumn, I'm coming." I looked at him. The distance was only 1 step, but my eyes gradually grew cold. Without hesitation, I slammed the door shut. In that instant, I saw the disbelief in Master Lee's eyes. Immediately after, a blood-curdling scream, chillingly resonant, echoed from outside the door. A large splash of blood splattered onto the paper window, mixed with bits of flesh and plasma. I recoiled a few steps, my hand still holding the candle high, muttering to myself, "Serves him right. This is his retribution." His retribution? Sweat drenched my forehead. I heard the sounds outside gradually diminish, finally falling silent. Only then did I dare take a deep breath. He couldn't see ghosts, but I could. From the first time I babbled about seeing ghosts as a child, he had noticed me. Later, as I grew a little older, he came to our house and told my parents he wanted to take me as his disciple. Everyone in the village respected him. I was accepted as a disciple, and my parents considered it an honor, so they agreed without a second thought. At first, I thought my life would improve, but no, all he wanted was to know why I could commune with spirits. He had a morbid obsession with spiritual cultivation, believing that dual cultivation could transfer my abilities to him. And so, I still couldn't escape a hellish existence. He even thought doing so would make my spiritual abilities even stronger. Any pilgrim who came to the village could commune with spirits for an extra 200 yuan. In the village, I was his servant. Outside the village, I was a living signboard that raked in money. Right now, my heart was filled with exhilaration. I burst into tears of joy. The candle in my hand turned crimson again. I wiped away my tears, pointed to the figure wrapped in white cloth like a mummy on the bed, and said to Felix, "Hurry, lie in there, and you can wake up." Felix was still in a daze, staring blankly at the bloodstains on the paper window. "Sister, why didn't you let him in?" I frowned, not wanting to get entangled, and placed the candle by the bed. Felix couldn't resist. Immediately drawn by the candle's scent, he leaned in to sniff it. Immediately after, a powerful force pulled him back into his body. I sat on the edge of the bed, praying for him to wake up quickly. Drops of red wax dripped onto the bed frame like fresh blood. Finally, when only a tiny bit of the candle remained, Felix stirred and then opened his eyes, his voice hoarse as he called me, "Sister." I stared blankly at the mummy-like body, softly humming in response. It hurt so much. His voice was faint, like a mosquito, weak and devoid of strength. I reached out to wipe the tears from my face, gently touching his hand. "It's okay now. It won't hurt anymore." Felix nodded, then said, "I want to see Father and Mother." I always indulged him. Normally, whatever he asked, I would do. I walked towards the door but hesitated when I got there. Felix saw me stop and spoke again. "Why aren't you going?" I pressed my lips together in silence for a moment before saying, "Gia is still out there, Felix. Can you only carry the candle?" As soon as he heard I intended to take the life-saving candle, he immediately objected. "You're half a Taoist yourself. What could possibly kill you?" Seeing me still standing still, he added, "Wait until I'm well again. I'll deal with that wretched wretch for you to vent your anger." After hearing that, I slowly turned my head, forcing a smile that was even uglier than crying. "Felix, before I go out, can I ask you something?" Felix looked a little bewildered but replied, "Ask away." "Why did you do that to Gia?" I asked, crying, my voice trembling like a dry branch. Felix's face stiffened as if struck in a sore spot, and he quickly tried to sit up. Do you think I killed Gia? He shook his head, his voice trembling. Mother said that girl was my wife, raised as a daughter-in-law since she was little. She was mine from the start, so what's wrong with what I did? I really don't know why she died. Believe me. It turned out they had regarded Gia as a ready-made daughter-in-law from the very beginning. It was as if I had suddenly awakened. No wonder Mother didn't consider it a big deal at all. I softened my voice and said, Felix, I know you didn't kill her. I believe you wouldn't do such a thing. Felix finally breathed a sigh of relief, a crack in his dry lips forming a smile. You think so too, right? We're family, aren't you clear what kind of person I am? I didn't answer. Felix cautiously asked again, what about the candle? What are you going to do with it? I looked down at the embroidered shoes on my feet, covered in mud. Those are the shoes Gia made for me herself. Before that, every summer I had to walk barefoot. I suddenly looked up, and in the dim candlelight, I whispered, without the candle, I will truly die. Would you let your sister die? There are still talismans from Master Li in the room. What's the big deal about one less candle? Felix mumbled in response. But it's better to be careful. Besides, if something happens to me, Father and Mother will definitely beat you to death. I'm only saying this for your own good. I nodded, took a deep breath, and was about to step out to call my parents in. Just then, Felix suddenly asked one last question. Hey, the other day, when Gia was brought for the funeral, you went by yourself. Do you know whether she committed suicide or was murdered? I stepped out the door, the night wind blowing my disheveled hair. I silently looked at Felix's body, wrapped in white bandages, and my voice deepened. Your sister killed her. The room fell silent, only Felix's ragged breathing echoing. Crash, a loud sound, Felix fell off the bed, letting out a cry of pain. I gently closed the door. Inside the room, Felix's voice trembled, filled with extreme fear. He changed the way he addressed me without even realizing it. Sister, what did you say? What did you just say? Sister, sister. I turned around. In the courtyard, a crimson figure stood silently, its head bowed low and motionless. The ground was littered with Master Li's internal organs. His guts were dragged across the yard, his head and body separated by several meters. Gia blinked her blank white pupils, stepping by step into that room. I squatted down, picking at a long piece of small intestine on the ground with a twig. Inside, another blood-curdling scream erupted. My tears dripped onto the pool of blood, and I mumbled to myself, seriously, why were you so stingy that you wouldn't give your sister one candle? Clearly, one less wouldn't kill you, so why wouldn't you give it to me? Just like that day, the familiar, terrifying cry of despair brought back a rush of memories. After being violated by my younger brother, Gia went mad, lunging and biting at anyone she saw. My mother said the girl was truly insane, so they locked her in the woodshed, tying her up daily. They began discussing selling Gia off because they couldn't let my brother have a child with a lunatic. 3 meals a day, I was the only one who brought the girl food. Felix didn't believe it. He still wanted to do that asterisk to Gia. The day I accompanied Master Li outside for a ritual, he sneaked into the woodshed again. When I returned, blood flowed from between Gia's legs, spreading across the straw mat. Sister, kill me, kill me. The girl lay there, her hair disheveled, red whip marks still on her face. She clutched my clothes, crying until she was breathless, her desperate wails shattering my heart. Sister, please kill me. I choked back a sob, shaking my head, my eyes red. Sister, I can't live anymore. I can't live. Getting out of here will only mean suffering torment from others. The girl was so desperate that no more tears would fall. I knelt beside the bed, choking as I called her name. Gia, my Gia. She was crying too, her legs trembling, unable to close from the pain. Her voice was weak and broken. Kill me, let me become a vengeful spirit and kill them all. Avenge me, avenge me. She strained her neck, trying to force a reassuring smile. Sister, if I kill them all, you'll be able to eat your fill and dress warmly afterward. Kill me. How ironic. The only way I could protect my sister was to kill her, to turn her into a vengeful spirit. We couldn't leave this mountain. We couldn't escape this life. If I didn't kill Gia, her life would be worse than hell. In that moment, hatred for my family and pity for my sister made my hand reach for her neck. The pain was so gut-wrenching that I could barely squeeze. My vision darkened, my heart felt like it would explode. Gradually, Gia's face turned purple. The girl still smiled silently, her lips only mouthing, Sister, it doesn't hurt. My eyes were empty, lifeless, looking at her, closing, her breath fading. I couldn't collapse, I had to force myself to stand. I knew that among all vengeful spirits, the most resentful were murderous spirits. and the fastest way to create a murderous spirit was to have joy and sorrow collide. So, I waited until the third day after the ritual for the village chief's son, so that on that same day, I would hold my sister's funeral. When the village chief pulled me aside and brought up the ghost marriage, I agreed. They fell into my trap. I deliberately reminded him that he should hold the wedding and funeral at the same time. It would be convenient and save money. When I got home, I skillfully brought up the 20,000 yuan. Seeing the greed flash in my parents' eyes, I knew this marriage would definitely go smoothly. I just didn't expect that on the day of the procession, the drowned, vengeful spirit would suddenly spring from the coffin, rushing into the sedan and tearing apart Jia's soul. I only wanted Jia to become a powerful, vengeful spirit so she could take revenge herself, but in a single moment I could no longer feel Jia's soul. I knelt on the yellow earth before the wedding sedan, tearing my throat as I wailed. Jia, oh Jia, I was wrong, oh Jia. The sedan curtain was pulled aside. I blinked my tear-filled eyes, looking up in a daze. Those blank white eyes looked at me, a flicker of bewilderment passing through them. The creature called me sister. The girl had become a NHI, something even more terrifying than ghosts. My first reaction was not fear, but heartache. A NHI has no soul and cannot enter reincarnation. I hugged Jia tightly, crying and asking the heavens, why are you so unfair to her? If she cannot be reincarnated, then tear them all to shreds, don't let any of them live in peace. What Jia had endured, what I had borne all would be reclaimed bit by bit. They didn't deserve to die peacefully. My parents heard the mournful screams and rushed out frantically. Seeing the mangled corpse in the courtyard, both their faces turned ashen white. My mother trembled, asking, "Is this Master Li?" I nodded, my face blank, expressionless. Immediately after, agonizing screams echoed from inside the house again. "Mother, save me! Someone save me!" My parents froze for a moment, then my mother shrieked madly, "My son!" But she still dared not step inside, her eyes turning to me, weeping and cursing. "Autumn, your brother is still in there. What the hell are you doing just standing around?" I looked up, my dark eyes calmly meeting hers. "Jia is in there." As soon as she heard me say that, my father immediately slapped me with tremendous force, gritting his teeth. "Even if the king of hell himself were in there, you'd better drag your brother out." Perhaps my parents' eyes were the only obsession for a child deprived of affection. When he tried to raise his hand to hit me again, I grabbed his wrist, emphasizing each word. "Father, if I go in there, I'm certainly dead." My father froze for a moment, surprised to see me resist, then another, stronger slap came down. "If you die, you die. Your brother still has to carry on the family line for the Dong family. If he dies, how will I face our ancestors?" I had anticipated this answer, but it crushed the last vestiges of hope in my heart. The desperate screams inside the house grew more violent. I bowed my head, saying nothing, and silently walked in. My parents still stood outside, their eyes filled with eager anticipation. I pushed open the door, and before my eyes was a horrifying scene. My younger brother was no longer human, his limbs gone, like a blood-soaked cocoon crawling back and forth on the floor, howling in a hoarse voice. Jia saw me enter and stopped, standing motionless, her eyes empty. I gently picked up my brother and turned to Jia, saying, "Let's go." Jia silently followed me. As soon as my mother saw what I was holding, she was so terrified she vomited right there. Felix's eyes were clouded, covered by a white film. His soul must have been gnawed away, with very little left. Next to Jia was an extremely heavy mass of resentment, and it was precisely when the yin energy was densest that my parents could also see her. My father's legs went weak, and he collapsed onto the ground, his hand trembling as he pointed behind me, stammering, "Ghost! There's a ghost!" I touched my brother's head. It was entirely blood, soaking my palm. I offered him to my mother, but she unconsciously recoiled a step. I patiently explained, "Mother, this is my brother." Mother clutched her head and sank to the ground, muttering Felix's name as if she were insane. I sighed. My father still had a shred of sanity. With a little thought, he immediately understood something. He screamed, "You monstrous spawn, you're both in league with each other, aren't you?" I threw Felix to the ground like a pile of rags, feigning innocence. "What are you saying, father?" "Aren't we always family?" Jia slowly stepped forward. My father was so terrified he lost his mind and wailed. He was no longer acting like the family head. I softly said, "Father, you knew very well that Master Li used me as a living signboard, and just for 200 yuan a month, you kept your mouth shut. But deep down, you still thought I was filthy, didn't you?" My father now realized his life was in danger and dared not be stubborn anymore. He burst into tears, begging me to stop Gia. Daughter, I'm your father. Forgive me, please. Your father knows he was wrong. I coldly watched as Gia plunged all her long fingernails into his stomach, pulling out a mass of bloody, squirming flesh. He could no longer scream, his eyes sunk, filled with hatred as he stared at me. I knelt down and looked at him. Father, since childhood, you've beat me almost to death countless times, just for that time when my hands were slightly burned by salt. In the bitter cold of winter, you used a red-hot iron on me, then forced me to sleep in the pigsty for a whole month. I saw tears fall from the corners of his eyes, and I too burst into tears, but all those things I could forgive you for. But why? Why did you destroy my Gia? I raised her with my own hands. You didn't treat her like a human, you didn't even give her food. I starved myself to give her every bit of food, every sip of water. She is my daughter, the daughter I raised with my own hands. Why did you treat her like that? Gia's mouth emitted a hoarse, guttural sound. I couldn't hear it clearly, but my tears streamed down unrestrained. My father had stopped breathing, but his eyes were still wide, staring in this direction, his mouth moving soundlessly. Felix, my brother's name was Felix. My name is Autumn, and her name is Gia. He was born to enjoy fortune, to live a peaceful life. As for Gia and I, with one foot in hell, no matter how we struggled, we couldn't climb out. The more we struggled, the deeper we sank until we had to die prematurely. He gained one thing and lived like a prince. We lacked one thing and became tools, trampled upon, living lives worse than plow oxen. I knelt and placed my hand on his blackened face, gently closing his eyes. Felix won't have another life, and neither will you, Father. You both have enjoyed enough in this life, while I could only burn with envy until my very blood boiled. My mother's trousers were drenched in a large wet patch. She hugged the blood-cocooned corpse, muttering a children's lullaby as if rocking a baby. Gia had not yet acted. She pointed at my mother, who was kneeling on the ground, her voice hoarse and indistinct. She once held me like that too, when I was small. I remained silent. Finally, Gia spared my mother. Her husband gone, her son gone, her mind confused and chaotic. A life revolved around two men perhaps that was the most painful punishment for her. As the brilliant dawn dispelled the night, I held Gia's hand, stepping one by one out of that place. In the past, I could only climb the phoenix tree, looking down at the low rooftops below, the red brick walls that seemed to end abruptly at a glance. Such a short distance, yet it took me over 20 years to leave. Gia obediently let me lead her hand, step by step, down the mountain. Until the sun had fully risen, its light spreading across the sky, illuminating the path we were about to take. That winding mountain path, I had only ever seen it in advertisements pasted around the village. I squeezed Gia's hand tightly, my nose stinging, tears welling up. Gia, we can leave now. Gia silently squeezed my hand, her sharp nails tearing through the blood-stained fabric of my clothes, her voice hoarse. Sister, you can wear beautiful clothes and eat your fill now. I could live a full life, dressed cleanly, but when I died and entered reincarnation, my Gia would still wander this world, a lonely soul with nowhere to hide. I hugged Gia's body tightly, wailing as if my guts were being torn out. Gia, kill me, what's left for me to live for? Gia shook her head, raising her hand to touch my face but hesitating and pulling it back. She whispered, Sister, live well for me, okay? In this life, in the next, and in the one after that, live truly well. My tears fell, one by one, through her translucent hand. She blinked her hollow white eyes at me, a gentle look upon her face. I softly clasped her hand and quietly promised, Yes, I will live for you.